Hello again, and welcome to the next lesson in the Perfectly Spoken Advanced course. And in this lesson, we're going to be looking at the verbs of the senses. It's a grammar lesson. And as always, this is level C1 in terms of the Common European Framework. Or if you're more familiar with IELTS, it's around 7.5 on the IELTS scale. Okay, so what are we going to look at today? Well, we're going to look at the following. Verbs of the senses, the fact that they are like state verbs and therefore are not used in a continuous form. There are exceptions in terms of different meanings. We'll come to that later. We look at when we use it with an infinitive or an ing form. And we'll also be looking at the verb plus that and a clause, that's subject and another verb, etc. In lesson 58, later in the course, we'll be looking at some other areas in terms of verbs of the senses. Okay, so first of all, we're looking at the fact that they are not generally used in a continuous form. So there are essentially 5 verbs of the senses. Obviously, there are synonyms for some of these verbs, so there are actually more, but the basic verbs are the following: to see with your eyes, obviously, to hear with your ears, to smell with your nose, to touch with your fingers or your skin, and to taste with your mouth or tongue. So, as I said, these are state verbs, and as such, we don't generally use them in continuous form. There are some other meanings for some of these verbs, see and hear, and we'll look at that in a minute. So if we want to refer to something that's happening now, normally you would use which tense? Well, the present continuous. I'm playing football, I'm watching TV, an answer to the question, what are you doing, etc. Of course, with these verbs, we can't do that. So what we do is we use the modal verb can. So here's an example. I can see my house from here. Okay, there used to be an old joke I used to tell when I was at school. I'm not going into that, but anyway, I can see my house from here, as opposed to I'm seeing my house from here, which is not possible. I'm seeing my house from here is not possible. Speak up, I can't hear you, instead of speak up, I'm not hearing you. It's not possible to say I'm not hearing you. However, the verbs hear and see have different meanings, and as such they can be action verbs. The verb see, for example, can mean that you are going to meet somebody. You've arranged to meet somebody or to visit somebody like the dentist or something. So, for example, I'm seeing my sister tonight. I've arranged to meet her. So this is a different meaning of see in terms of the verb of the sense. Okay, it means you are meeting her. So in this case, it is possible to be continuous. There are other verbs that have both the state and the non-state forms. Things like think, for example, where it's an opinion, is a state verb. I think that the government should do X. This is your opinion. Whereas I'm thinking about my holiday is an action verb. So these are not the only verbs which have this both state and non-state forms. Okay, the next area we want to look at before we practice is verbs plus object and then either infinitive or ing form. So we can use hear, see, plus object plus infinitive without to, which is important, what we call the bare infinitive, the infinitive without to, or object plus ing. There is usually a difference of meaning between them. When we use the infinitive, we're talking about the fact that we have seen or heard the entire action from start to finish. We use the ing form to suggest or imply that we see the action in progress as it's happening in the middle of the action, not from start to finish, not in its entirety. So here we go. I saw the cat cross the road means I saw it cross from one side to the other, the whole thing. I saw the cat crossing the road. Perhaps when I arrived, the cat was already in the middle of the road and in the process of crossing it. So I didn't see the whole event. I heard her play the piano last week. This implies that you saw her entire or her whole performance. I heard her playing the piano last week. Perhaps you caught a short part of her performance, not the whole thing. Similarly, with other verbs such as watch, notice, listen, and feel, we have the same distinction. Okay? I watched the film last night means I saw the whole film. Essentially, I was watching the film last night. Perhaps you didn't see the whole film, or you were watching at a particular time. However, if we use the modal verb can with these verbs, then we can only use the ing form. It's not possible to use the infinitive. I could see James boarding the train, boarding meaning getting onto the train. I can hear your dog barking from across the street. Your dog's very loud, it barks very loudly. I can hear your dog barking from across the street rather than bark. And finally, we can use the verb of the senses with that and a clause. So we often use the present form, hear and see, with that to introduce pieces of news. I hear that your brother is being made redundant. He's losing his job for some economic reasons, okay? I see that the firefighters are demanding a pay rise. So here you can see that we use a hear or see plus that. The that, as always, well, as often as the case, is optional. We can drop it, okay? Other verbs can be used in this way too. I understand that you've been given a promotion. I gather, similar meaning to understand. I gather that you've decided to leave the company, or I've received information. I gather that you've decided to leave the company, and so on. Okay, so let's have a look at a bit of practice here. We've got an application form for a job or whatever. And here is the first sentence. And in each case, I want you to choose which would be the correct option. You can, as always, pause the recording at any time if you need time to think about it. So I saw the application form lie or lying on the coffee table. So here we have the verb see plus object, which would be the correct answer. Well, of course, the answer in this case is the ing form, because you possibly didn't see the form from the moment it was put down to the moment it was picked up. At some stage when it was on the table, you saw it. So we'd use the ing form here. I saw the application form lying on the coffee table. Here's another one, which is correct here. I can smell, or I'm smelling smoke. There must be a fire. I can smell, or I'm smelling smoke. Well, if we remember back to what I said earlier, we don't generally use these verbs in a continuous form, and we use the verb can if we want to talk about now. So the answer is, I can smell the smoke. There must be a fire. Number 3, is it I'm seeing the dentist later on today for a checkup, or I see the dentist later on today for a checkup? A checkup is when the dentist has a look at your teeth and to see if they're okay. You're not going for a particular reason to have a tooth extracted or removed or whatever. It's a checkup to see the general state of your teeth. So this is a different meaning of see from using your eyes. This means that you have arranged to go to the dentist, to meet the dentist for the checkup. So in this case, we can use present continuous. I'm seeing the dentist later on today for a checkup. Number 4, can you stop making so much noise? Is it I'm not hearing a thing, or I can't hear a thing? As always, pause the recording if you need a bit of time to think about it. And of course, it's I can't hear a thing. Again, with the meaning of hear, as in using your ears, is not used in a continuous form, so we use can, or in this case, can't. Number 5, is it I heard him go into the kitchen, or I heard him went into the kitchen? Well, after hear in object, we can either use an infinitive, it's the whole event, or the ing form. We don't use the past of the verb. So I heard him go into the kitchen. Some more examples. Okay, so you've got someone receiving some extra cash, extra money here. And is it I hear, or I'm hearing that you've been given a pay rise? I hear, or I'm hearing that you've been given a pay rise. Again, we use the here is state verb in terms of I have received information, I've been told that you have been given a pay rise. This is a structure here plus that plus a clause. You could equally say I hear you've been given a pay rise without the that. You can drop the that here. Number 7, he once heard him play or to play all of Mozart's concertos. So you've got the past of the verb here, heard, object, him. What form comes after that? Well, it's either the infinitive without to or the ing, so it's I heard him play all of Mozart's concertos. Or he once heard him play, I should say. Number 8. Is it I'm feeling or can feel a draft? Can you check the door is closed? A draft is like air or wind coming in through a window or a door. And the answer is I can feel. Again, we don't use the continuous form here. Number 9, I can't taste or I'm not tasting any seasoning. Seasoning is salt or pepper or whatever in the soup. Again, I can't taste any seasoning in the soup. And number 10, we could see you. Is it to cheat or cheating in the exam? And the answer is cheating. We always use the ing form after could. So we could see you cheat would not be possible either. We could see you cheating in the exam. Okay. So that's it for this particular lesson. In the next lesson, lesson 57, we will be looking at vocabulary area, extremes of nature, such as avalanches, forest fires, and so on, as well as idiomatic expressions related to these extremes. So as always, it will be me, Andy Nicol, and we'll be looking at the vocabulary and some idiomatic expressions like storm in a teacup and so on. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you found it useful. And as I said, in lesson 58, the lesson after next, we will be looking again at verbs of the senses and some other uses, including the verb see as well. Okay, take care and bye-bye for now.